Hello everyone, so today I wanted to share with you a demo on Fusion Sales where I want to go over what Fusion Sales is composed of and how to go into a sandbox and even get into App Composer. So let's get started. What is Fusion Sales? And before we get started, my name is Cesar Guerrero, if I didn't mention it earlier. So Fusion Sales, the way I would think about it is this application is meant to help sales rep complete sales or get sales. And how is that done? In my opinion, there's two core objects here. Really, one a little more than the other, but the main object is opportunities. This is when a sale is about to happen. This is where those possible sales are logged. And then we have leads. Leads are the interest that a potential customer may have. So they haven't had any actual conversations on buying something, but they might have. If you're using a product like Eloqua or a marketing tool, they might have clicked on your website on a specific product and logged into their account. So they're marked as a lead. Once they've been qualified through a different set of criteria, you would have them convert into an opportunity, which is where the actual potential sale would happen. So those two objects are key, but I don't want to overlook three other objects that I would say are just as important or almost as important if we're trying to track a sale. The first one is account management, and account really is what connects the leads, the opportunities, the contacts, and activities. An account is an organization that you're doing any business with. And similar to that, contacts next to that is an individual from the organization that you're in communication with. So through those two, you're able to form different relationships with the organization and an individual that may be interested in your business or that is already in an active opportunity or a sale with one of your sales reps. And then on right here, we have activities. Activities logs the different interactions that you may have with a organization or an individual. This could be for like a demo. And activities are broken down into two things. You can have appointments and you can have tasks. So an appointment is you schedule like a Zoom meeting, and a task is you might have a specific task like reaching out to someone or following up with someone from an organization. And if I had to simplify sales into the 5 key objects, those would probably be where I would start with. There are more areas that cover sales, but for now we'll go over those 5. And so what is our overall goal with sales? I think we kind of touched on that at the beginning, but Sales Cloud, really, our goal is to help sales reps complete sales. However, I would like to note that in the past, I have done implementations where organizations use Fusion Sales for account management, and that completely changes the setup, but it's doable, and there's ways to work on that based on the criteria that is set by the organization that you're implementing sales for. And there's 2 areas you might see up here. There's normal sales and redwood sales. If you're new to the space, sales would be for the classic UI. So the classic UI is how the old ways of doing things. And a lot of organizations that have been in Fusion are still in this classic UI, but we're currently in a shift to redwood sales. Redwood sales is a new UI, but also it has a great updated way of working with the organization where the UI is enabled to have AI features. We're able to set different actions now with more flexibility that we didn't have in the past. One of the biggest differences in how I've interpreted to myself is uh, sales uses something called ADF, which would be, like I said, the classic UI, but in ADF, a page would load all at once. So everything's loading, so it would be a little slower. But now with Redwood sales, instead of loading the whole page at once, there's something called fragments that load individually. So now the page is broken up into sections, and when each section's loaded, we give more speed to the other pieces to load faster. So instead of loading one big page as a whole, we're breaking it up and loading individual pieces individually, so that as more capacity builds up, we're able to load other items quicker. That's one of the cool things of Redwood sales, and I'm really excited for the new implementations that I've been working on with Redwood, because they've opened more flexibility that we didn't have in sales before. So in another video we may go over I'll go over both just at a high level through the classic UI and also the Redwood sales, so you can kind of see differences. But if I'm going to go into sales, let's just go into what's known as workspace. And workspace is really what I like to call our 360 view of a fast way to get into objects very quickly, or get into them quickly. As a note, I am in a demo environment, so if it feels a little slower, it's probably because of that. Production runs a lot faster, but if you can see here, these are all the objects that we have. If we go into opportunities and we click it, we can see that we have some lists that are already pre-built. We can also build custom lists, but this one's my open opportunities. So if there's any opportunities that are available to me, this is where they would be. And I'm just going to click on one, just so you kind of see. And again, like I mentioned, the key thing is being able to help salespeople create or complete and get a sale. So what are some things that we can do when we implement this product to help salespeople get a sale? One is being able to have fields and the flexibility of capturing information that will help us get the sale. Another thing is being able to log, and I'll just walk through the left, because on the left we can kind of see some areas that are available. The next one is being able to list any contacts that are related to the opportunity. So here we have a few individuals. We can see their job title, and based on their role, you might have to message them or get in contact with them, email them, based on if they're a key decision maker or if there's any dependencies on them. You can also identify who the primary is here. And again, this is classic. Redwood is very similar. It just, the UI looks a bit different. Next, on the left, we have assessment. Assessment here allows us to, just as it sounds, it's pretty much a quiz or an exam, but in leads, the way we use it, I'm going to use leads as an example, because we have lead qualifications where we can set a set of criteria, and based on that criteria, you can qualify a lead or see how warm or hot a lead is. This, and the reason I say this is because that's kind of similar to this. In this assessment, we're able to select the different types of quizzes that may help your client. So this one here, this is an opportunity discount eligibility. So if there is any chance of being able to give a discount to someone, you could do it by filling out this form. And the lead qualification sheet looks very similar to this. So I'm going to hit cancel here. There's also this team piece. This team piece is to allow you to understand who from your organization is taking care of what, or what is their role in this sale. So like here you might have someone that's an account manager or the primary salesperson, and then you can select the owner by clicking on this, and that'll change who is going to be in charge of this opportunity. And then you can also select new individuals um, um, individuals access. Then we have partners. The way I would think about partners is partners could be like franchises, or you might have a core company, but then there might be franchises that are supporting you to make the sale. It could be other companies that help you make the sale or support the deal, and you'd be able to list them out here or add them here. We also have activities, which, as I mentioned before, could be an appointment. It could be a task that you might have. In this case, we can see one right here. This is a task. And when you hover, as you just saw, if you hover over certain the icons, it'll tell you what it is. We have notes. A notes is just a note. One note here for the note is last time I implemented Classic, we couldn't search on this note. So if you ever need to search on notes from Workspace, at least, that used to be a limitation. I might have changed, but just something to be cautious about. But yeah, if you wanted to have a note just on the account, this would be where you would do that. Leads was what I mentioned earlier, where this would be where any related interest that someone has shown, and ideally that interest or lead has evolved into an opportunity, so you would just see where that lead derived from, or where the opportunity derived from, which would be a lead here. Quotes in order for any quotes that you might have to do. You might be using CPQ for that, or configure price quote. And then we have two other areas, but I want to switch over now to Redwood. So with that, let me hit yes here. And let's go into Redwood. And I mainly want to show you how it differs and how it's similar. So one similarity you'll see is that there is a search area, right? As it loads right now, you'll see that you're going to have a list of opportunities. It's kind of like what we saw in Workspace, but in this case, this one, or at least in Redwood, if you're on the opportunities object, you're just going to get a list of opportunities. All right, so here are the opportunities. I'm going to hit X on this just so we can see a few. So here you can see them. Again, similar to what we saw in Workspace, we would be able to click on this and be able to get different presetted lists, and we can create our own list as well. If we look on the right, we can add filters. So if I wanted to go on account, then we can select what value. So let's say Crest Unlimited. We could even go into actions and manage columns and add different columns that we might want to see. So, yep, as you can see, and what you just saw, you can also do this in the classic UI. I'm hoping that you're seeing some similarities. Something to note before we click into our first opportunity is there are fields like win probability here. And so there's two kinds of win probability. We can have one that we set based on what gets filled out in the opportunity. And there's another win probability that involves having some AI use, where depending on the different patterns that Oracle has seen, it will tell you the win probability score that it believes you have. And next to that, we'll see the name of the opportunity, the account, the amount or the size of the opportunity, the close date, who owns it internally. So if it was me, you would see my name here, and then what stage. So within sales, if you worked at a sales rep or you've done this before, there is different sales stages as you're working a deal, and this can also be used to help drive the win probability or other features. So let's click into our first opportunity, ERP enhancement. So one of the cool things I like about the Redwood view is we get really, if you click on the different objects, you get what I like to call a true 360. At the bottom, you can see all the related areas. These are all different objects. The guidance area, this is related to the different steps you would have when working a deal. Activities, this is what we went over. Task or opportunities, contacts, individuals, products, what the customer's interested in buying. Next to that, we'll have quotes, the team. So you're starting to see, a lot of similarities that have been or are a part of what we saw in the classic UI. And before I go on into the details page, you can see this AI summary, which just gives you an AI description of what's going on with this opportunity. It's just a text that's summarized based on the different data that's been inputted, and then it also gives you the next steps that it thinks you should take. So yeah, if you see that, that's one of the big features why it is important and good to move into Redwood, because then you can access these new features. And then let's go into the details page. So here is details. And the details page, something you might see is, it looks just like a form. It's just a form. We can add fields, create, change the way this looks. Here, this has been set up in a way to support the customers of this organization. And if we wanted to change this, we would click on the right and hit edit in Visual Builder Studio, and that's how we edit these Redwood pages. But I'll be showing you in a few how to create a field, at least from the classic UI, since that is a little more straightforward. In another video, we'll cover the Redwood piece of it. Okay, so I'll hit cancel. And you see this bar here. This is called the action bar. Within the action bar, there's different capabilities or availabilities from something called smart actions. So each one of these things that you're seeing, those are all smart actions, and we can build them out. And they're just shortcuts and a way that Oracle's been able to allow us to have different actions without having to click into other areas. So here I can hit create a task, and if I were to, so I don't have permissions for it, but if I did, we would be able to create a task, and that task would automatically be related to this opportunity. So I hope that this overview or demo was helpful. I want to go next into a sandbox, and I'll do that by hitting the navigator on the far left and kind of show you where fields get created, and at least from a classic UI perspective, where we would create fields, because we still create fields in the same manner. It just, when we're adding them in Redwood, we're adding them in Visual Builder. So I'm going to go into Tools, and we'll click on Sandbox. And so what is a sandbox? A sandbox allows us to kind of experiment and be able to start doing different setups without compromising or making those changes into production or into the live environment. So this is a play area that you can have and test with CG. So I'll do that. And today's date is 7/14. Let's hit create and enter. And if we follow this step, we've created our first sandbox or a sandbox. And then from here, one thing that you might have noticed is I created a sandbox and I added application composer. If we need to add more, we could click into it and add additional areas. But app composer is really where we want to go. I'll hit tools, click on app composer. From app composer, we are able to see any custom objects that have been created. If we open that up, I don't want to play with those yet. And we can also go into our standard object. So here I opened up standard object, and I'm going to go down and look for opportunities. Open up opportunity, and let's start off with fields. So if we click on fields, it is split into two sections, and it's like this for all of these objects, where on the left side you will be able to see all the custom fields, and on the right side you'll see all the standard fields. And it hasn't loaded yet, but let's give it 1 second. There we go. So here we go. These are all custom fields that someone made in this demo environment. And if we click on the right side, we'll see all the standard fields that nothing had to be done for these standard fields. These are just what come presetted with the product. So, and there are a long list of fields for all of the objects. And again, it's not a big deal if we have any custom fields. They from my experience working on this product, Oracle will support, as long as we're not going over the top with scripting and scripting in customization. But if we're just building out fields, we're fine. There may be limits, but they are really high. So I just want to show you where our fields are, so that way if you ever need to go in here and see, what's available to us, you'd be able to see them, and you kind of get the display name, the API name, and then what type of field it is. And then you can't change it for a standard field. There's some values you won't be able to change, like you might not be able to change if it's a required field or an updatable field. There's just some fields that are out of the box that aren't meant to be changed, or some values are meant to be changed. And so like this one, this is the target ID. We can change if it's required, searchable. Yeah, I just wanted to show you that. And now let's go into pages. In the classic UI, pages is where we would go and set up the layout in which users are going to be seeing the object that you're working on. And it's nice because the way you see it is the way it typically will look and work. So we'll give it 1 more second for it to finish loading. Okay, here we go. And first one's the landing page. This landing page is, let's click into it. This is the list view. And then we'll have the creation page and our edit page or details page right underneath. An interesting thing you might have noticed is that there were a few different types of pages within the landing page. This is because the different roles here would be able to see the respective page. So you don't have to have one page for everyone. You can have multiple pages to fit your different user roles. And then we have our creation page layout and our details page layout. And if I wanted to make a new default, I would just click on the standard layout or any one of these, and then hit duplicate, which is this icon with 2 papers. Rename it. I'm not going to do that. I just want to show you, and then we would be prompted to something like this, the default custom layout, which is someone already created a new page. And so for the create page, one thing we'll be able to see is at the top, create opportunity. These are all the fields that if we go into a form right now and we're just general users, this is what we would be able to see. We'd be able to see the name, account, primary contact, and most likely the only thing we would need to fill out would be name, but it would just depend on what fields in this layout have been set as required fields. So I'm going to hit create, or the little pencil icon. And when we click on that, on the left, you're able to see all of the fields that we can add to the right. And if we hover over them, we get their API name, I believe. So when lost reason, we see the API name that comes in next to it. And that pretty much covers it up. In the next video, we'll actually make some changes to a page. But in this video, I just wanted to give you that high level of Sales Cloud, going into a sandbox, and then App Composer. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I hope this was helpful. Thank you.